The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throbbing my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty shape.
All right, online with us, of course, is our old friend. He committed this year to check in every couple weeks to check on the Miami Heat, who are struggling. They are a mess. They are not interesting. I made that quite clear on the podcast, a couple of days ago, on both my shows. Of course, he's the co-host of the Locked On Heat podcast alongside Wes Goldberg, as well as the NBA writer at the Step Back, our good friend and yours, and newly father again. I think second time, right?
Yes, correct.
David Ramil, what's up, buddy?
Oh, hanging in there, trying to get sleep while we can, but otherwise life is great.
Let me ask you a question. How much sleep are you getting a night?
Not too bad, a couple hours here and there. You do what you can whenever he goes to sleep. You try to match it, and uninterrupted sleep isn't convenient, but you know what? It's great. It's all worth it for the opportunity to raise a beautiful baby boy.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I was just there last year with the little one. My 1-year-old, man, and let me tell you, it's night and day raising my two kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I'll tell you what, I was spoiled with the 5-year-old because he's. And maybe because my wife stayed home for the first kid, maybe because of structure or whatever. But he was, to me anyway, he was easy. Yeah. This one, my youngest one, oh my God, total opposite.
Yeah.
So I want to complaining, of course, about that, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's not for everybody. I mean, and I think more people should understand the challenges of that, but at the same time recognize the great that comes with it too. So it's a balance.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
But hopefully more people in it.
Yeah, I was doing my Periscope show yesterday on the way to pick up my son, and I started talking about the Heat yesterday on there, and he was quiet through the entire podcast until I brought up the Heat, and he started crying and getting pissed off. I'm like, oh boy, now you know how I feel now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are frustrated with the Heat, so I can totally understand his perspective.
I mean, the video it's on Twitter. The video's up. You'll laugh your ass off. It's funny. So okay, the Heat. First off, let me ask you a question, because you were at the arena last night in Orlando covering the Magic Nuggets game, right? Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is it with Orlando and Miami? In the last couple of years, like, Miami could be an elite team here or there, but Orlando is an issue now?
Even during the 30-11 stretch a couple of years ago, the Magic still seemed to have a number. I think they won 3 out of 4 matchups that year.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a divisional rivalry, obviously, because I think a lot of people have made this point that the Heat and the Magic have never really been good at the same time. Considering the relative success each franchise has had over the last 3 decades of existence, they've only met once in the playoffs, which is kind of strange when you think about how often Miami has met the Knicks per se. So the Magic and Heat have never really had any kind of intense playoff rivalry or anything like that, but I think Orlando still views Miami's sustained, prolonged success as something they'd like to have, and the Magic franchise has been so tumultuous. I guess that's a pretty good way of phrasing it. Over the last few years, they've been so down.
At least post Dwight, you can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Post Dwight Mayer, I mean, they've had 5 coaches and no playoff success, and players go in and out, and then of course you trade away guys like Tobias Harris and Victor Oladipo and even Domantas Sabonis, and they all go on to find a way to thrive outside of Orlando, and you're kind of stuck wondering, well, what the hell's going on? But they brought in Steve Clifford, who's a proven coach. He seems to have the team playing at a very high level. They're getting some nice production out of their young guys, Jonathan Isaac and Mo Bamba off the bench. Aaron Gordon has been stable. Evan Fournier was a problem early at the start of the year as far as his shooting is concerned, but he seems to have picked it up a notch lately. But the story, I think, is Nikola Vucevic. I mean, he's been fantastic over there. He's playing at an all-star level. And he creates matchup problems for Hassan Whiteside with his passing and playmaking. And, when you have that kind of athletic young team that wants to play at a high level, well, Miami has been struggling with that all season long. You look at a team like the Hawks, who have managed just a handful of wins all season, 2 of which came against Miami. And that's just another young team that seems to give a crap, and something Miami has had a hard time doing lately.
You were saying like playoff series and stuff that lack of for the Heat. The only one I can remember that they had was that first round series back in '98 or '99 against Orlando. I remember Darryl Armstrong was killing the Heat at one point.
Penny Hardaway, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't remember really. Yeah, you're right. There hasn't really ever been any series that stands out. Miami's either been really, really good at the time and been bad, and vice versa. They've never been good at the same time for the most part. I agree. It's just weird. Like Orlando, and now all of a sudden, now I look at Orlando on the schedule. Now I'm like, that's not a guaranteed win anymore. Like I remember going to Tuesday saying, wait, that's not a guaranteed win. That is not a guaranteed win. So I don't know. It's a weird match. And for the record, Orlando. I mean, I know we're on the Heat right now, but Orlando right now looks like a team that might get an 8 spot at least this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think the Clifford's familiarity with the playoffs and his experience in the NBA in general has really gotten the most out of this team. I would have thought Frank Vogel would have been able to do the same, but I think he was a little bit too much of a player's coach and maybe didn't push the team in the kind of the same direction that Clifford has. Yeah. So it's been an interesting process there, and again they've got more talent now, and everybody's a little bit more comfortable playing alongside each other, and it doesn't hurt again that Vucevic is playing at the level that he has.
2-2 homestand, 5-9 on the road right now currently, and now you're about to face a 6-game road trip, grueling, the biggest one of the year. I was saying for the homestand, they had to win, they had to go 3-1 or even better, obviously, to make me feel better. 2-2, not good enough. Now you got a road trip that covers what I saw a stat 5,000 miles at one point, 5,000 miles of ground. That includes games against the Clippers, who are playing very well, the Lakers playing very well, Memphis, Utah. This is there's some names. I'm of the opinion right now that if they don't go at least 3-3, this season could be toast right now.
Well, they won't go 3-3. I mean, you're right about the level of quality in these matchups. I mean, there's only one imminently winnable game there, and that's against the Phoenix Suns. And even that, let's be honest, again, if they get some good production, look, Devin Booker's out, so that's Miami's only saving grace, I think. But other than that, none of those games is winnable. I mean, you mentioned the 2 LA teams. Obviously, they'll create matchup problems. Memphis is playing at such a high level. That could be an interesting game for Miami because Miami obviously plays at a fairly slow pace. So Memphis's grinded out system won't necessarily limit what Miami can do offensively. It's they struggle to form points anyway, so it's not necessarily something that's going to be difficult to do against the Grizzlies, which is how they prefer to play. But they play the Pelicans, who are having their own questions and issues right now. But I think overall, you look at these 6 games, and they could very easily go 1-5. And if that's the case, then you're almost 15 games below 500. What do you do at that point? I mean, are you still invested in making the playoffs this year? Do you embrace a much more proactive tanking process? Do you start trading away veterans and kind of looking to rebuild, or maybe even a small rebuild? If you at least trade away guys like Wayne Ellington, maybe find a suitor for any of our young players. It's a challenge for Pat Riley right now that I don't see that there is any clear answer to.
I can't imagine the Heat wanting even because we were here before a couple years ago where they were 15 games under 500 or if not worse, and they still managed to go to 500 in a year 2 years ago with a 3-11 end. Obviously, the vibe is a bit different this time. I still can't see a Riley team wanting to tank, even if that might be the most necessary move to make right now in the short term.
He's admitted that the team's average. I think that's probably the best case scenario, that it's an average team. He's not seeing the same kind of production, but you've got these bloated contracts. You're not going to be unable to move them. So he has to, look at some way of trying to change his team around. And if you can't trade away the bloated contracts of Hassan Whiteside and Tyler Johnson, and you don't want to trade the young core of Richardson, Winslow, and Adebayo, what have you got left? You got like a mishmash pair of guys like, Ellington and James Johnson and Deion Waiters, who still has yet to play. Goran Dragic, whose value might be at an all-time high. Look, I love Dragic, My co-host Wes obviously has been a big fan, like most of the Heat fan base, of trying to trade him now while you can still get something for him. I'm opposed to the idea, but I just don't know how long you can continue to have a 30-something-year-old point guard as your team's best player, and that's not saying much because obviously his production has tailored off at this point of his career. He's getting older. He's not getting any better. So I don't know what else he can do. So from Riley's perspective, if you don't tank, you don't get an infusion of talent somehow. I don't know what else option you have because you're not going to be able to trade for a superstar. Your best bet came and went with Jimmy Butler. What's next? And, it's funny because we were just talking about the Memphis Grizzlies. That's a good role model there. You look at what they were doing last year when they were struggling with injuries. And I know that's a different story because Conley and Gasol were both hurt.
Right, exactly.
But they got a top 5 pick, and Jaren Jackson Jr. looks phenomenal. And he's all of a sudden infused them with a level of energy they didn't have. They brought in a pretty good value free agent in Kyle Anderson. You get another year of development from the guys like Dylan Brooks, et cetera. And then all of a sudden you've got, a Garrett Temple who you acquired pretty cheaply in a trade. You didn't have to give up much in order to acquire him. And then you've got Conley and Gasol who come back from injury. All of a sudden you've got a legitimate playoff team. They could have gone the other route, traded off Gasol and Conley, embrace the tank, maybe try to get a first-round pick, et cetera. But instead, they just kind of got some young talent, and they look pretty good. Maybe that's the best-case scenario for Miami in the future.
I'm a Dragic guy, just for the record, and you know that.
Yeah,
even when you and I did the podcast back when, on Hot Hoops, I was a Dragic guy all the way through. But it might be time to, especially after this road trip, if things go, like you said, 1-5, as you predict. Is that a prediction, 1-5? Or...
I'll go 2-4 because they could pull out a win against a Utah team that's still struggling a little bit to find their identity. Although I think the Jazz's problem has been mostly schedule related. They've had a brutal stretch playing away from home. So I think they're going to be one of those teams that can make a second half surge. But again, against Memphis or Utah, those are probably your most winnable teams. I can't see them knocking off LeBron at home. I don't see that being a realistic possibility.
Let's this is a favor and doesn't play. I mean, that can happen.
Yeah, that's an option. So if I had to make a prediction, I'll go 2-4. How about that?
Well, like I said, 2-4, 1-5, 0-6. You gotta start thinking about trading assets, and it may include Dragic, unfortunately, because value now, his value might have been better last year, but his value now is better than it will be going forward. He won't be better than he is now. And I'm not saying I want to trade Dragic, but for the sake of the franchise, and look, these contracts, they're bad. Look, we spoke about this over and over again for the last 2 years, really, about these deals being, questionable. And now 2 years later, in hindsight, it's like, wow, they really, like their word, they really did fuck up. And I think you have to do what you can to clear some space. Now, I thought that the Dwayne Wade thing was good in the sense that it would distract from that discussion, but clearly with all the injuries, Deion Waiters being out, Dragic out for a little bit now, and I thought it'd be a good distraction, but it has not been a distraction. In fact, I've forgotten about the Dwayne Wade farewell tour, and these Heat problems won't go away.
Yeah, I think it's still been encouraging to see Wade play at a pretty high level. He came back somewhat energized after taking a 2-week stretch there for the birth of his daughter. So it's been good to see him playing at a pretty high level. And, it was an interesting transition a couple games ago. I'm struggling to remember against whom, where he gave up a last-second shot and he passed the ball to Josh Richardson, who took a... That
was the Atlanta game, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. How you lose Atlanta? I mean, come on.
Well, I think it's the Hawks pace. Trae Young bombing from long range and enough young guys there that really seem to care. I mean, Dwayne Dedmon outplayed Hassan Whiteside. And I want to go back to what you were saying because you mentioned the bad contracts. I could live with almost every one of those deals, including Tyler Johnson's, but the one I cannot deal with is this Hassan Whiteside deal. That might be Pat Riley's most egregious error over the 20-something years he's been with his franchise.
Didn't you and I have fights over that before he signed the deal, like way back when, about discussions about is it a good idea to sign him, is it not a good idea to sign him? And I defended the fact that they should sign him on because of the asset. You said no, you're gonna regret this, and you're winning the battle right now, buddy.
If that's how you remember it, I'll take the credit, but I don't recall, to be 100% honest with you. I think maybe we were just doing that for a hot hoop's sake to kind of have a pro and for sort of a debate going on there. But
you were against it though. You were.
I was against it, and certainly for the price that they paid. I mean, that's the whole thing though. It's like you could have kept Whiteside. I would have loved to have paid him, along one of the same deals that they threw at James Johnson or Dion Waiters or Kelly Olynyk, something in the under $50 million range, that would have been fine because he could still be traded at that point. But paying him $20-something million a year to be the kind of player that he is, forget about it.
Let him walk.
Yeah, I mean, look, there wasn't much of a market, but if Mark Cuban wants to pay it, let him pay it. I can't recall. I think it was Dallas and Portland were the only legitimate potential suitors for Hassan Whiteside other than Miami. Well, that's where for Pat Riley should have balked. I know, and I've talked about this on our show before, it was a response to Dwayne Wade leaving in 2016. Like when Dwayne Wade left, Pat Riley had looked in the mirror and said, God, I've let LeBron go in 2014. I've had to struggle to keep Dwayne Wade for the last 2 seasons, and now he's finally leaving. I've got to do something to kind of keep this team together. And so he overpaid for Hassan Whiteside. He overpaid for Tyler Johnson, matched that deal, that restricted free agency, a contract offer from the Brooklyn Nets. And he just felt like he was keeping this team intact, and it bounced. It clearly did not work in his favor, and we're starting to see now. And now look, Wes has talked about this a number of times, so I'm curious how you feel about it. He's floated the possibility of stretching and waiving and stretching Hassan's deal.
No, why bother? Wait until next year.
Because
let me tell you why. Wait until next year. It's expiring next year.
Yeah,
somebody's taking a contract next year for expiring. I guarantee that.
No way. There's no chance anybody takes on $27 million or whatever he's going to get paid next year, even if there's only 1 year left. Like if he was productive, if he was Hassan Whiteside at 2015, yeah, because you could say, well, you know what, we're lacking a rim protector.
He is. I think the issue is not so much he's not productive. He is productive to some degree. I mean, he just had a game that he was 23 and 19 with a few blocks. It's that it doesn't translate consistently to wins. But you're giving teams out there too much credit. There are stupid teams out there in the NBA. Trust me, they are. You know this. And somebody will take a chance on an expiring deal even for Whiteside for 1 year. I guarantee it, man. There are teams out there who will do that. I don't know who. I mean, I don't want to say the Kings right now because the Kings are actually starting to look a little smarter now. But still, there is got to be a team out there who will take that contract for 1 year.
I can't think of any off the top of my head because again, if you're looking at bringing in a specialized set of skills in Hassan Whiteside because he's not a unicorn, he's not a versatile player. You know that you're getting limited offense because he doesn't have much of a back to the basket game. He can't space the floor. He doesn't pass or create from the center position. So you're getting almost exclusively some rim protection, occasional rebounding, and maybe some catch and lob opportunities. That's about it.
A stretch will cost, a stretch of what, maximum 7 years, right?
Yeah, I think you're going to be averaging out like $11 million over the next 5 seasons as opposed to.
That's a lot of money. That's what you're paying Markelle Fultz almost right now as a rookie contract. I mean, he's not bad enough to cut him to stretch him. That's the thing. He's not a guy who's not doing anything. It's just trying to get him to not be a fucking knucklehead every fucking 3 weeks.
He doesn't have any interest in doing that, man. I'll be honest with you. I look. We've seen Hassan come up from when he was absolutely nothing and work his way up from the Sioux Falls Skyforce to getting some playing time only because Chris Anderson was hurt. I mean, that feels like an eternity ago when he was only getting that brief opportunity to show his skills because Chris Anderson was hurt and they didn't want him, keep Chris Bosh at the center position full time. So, and since then, he's gotten this huge bloated contract. He's gone through some injuries, but he's not athletic. He's not explosive. And again, you pointed out to his most recent big game. The only reason it was there was because he was facing Rudy Gobert and he wanted to prove something to Gobert.
It's a matchup also favorable to the Heat because of the style of play also.
Yeah, that's fine. But it's like, where is that the rest of the time? Where is that intensity and energy? Like, if you have that available to you, the fact that you don't bring it every time and that you bring it so infrequently, I would argue that he is bad enough to waive and stretch, that you don't want it. Like, if you want to salvage a season because you want to make the playoffs or you want to try and show that the young core has some potential in them and you want to give them as much playing time as possible, get him the hell off your team right the hell away. I mean, as soon as you possibly can. Like, at this point, Bam Adebayo is clearly the better center. Even Kelly Olynyk's the better option. Mm-hmm. They just fit better with the kind of offense that this team is most effective running. And Hassan wants 40 touches a game so he can put up triple team shots in the paint and to take 18-foot face up jumpers. This is not good. This is not good offense. This is not good productivity. So the fact that he can contribute sometimes, get those double doubles, big deal. There's not enough energy. There's not enough intensity there. I think he's a poisonous presence in this locker room, unfortunately. Look, I was optimistic. I really wanted to see Hassan turn it around. I was there in media day, and everybody was so optimistic that he had turned a corner, etc. Bullshit.
Let the record show. Even though we're piling on Whiteside, I still think the worst contract of this team is not Whiteside. It's Tyler Johnson, and that's not even Riley's fault. That's Mickey Harrison's fault.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, that is Mickey's fault, and again, that was a response to Dwayne Wade's departure. But I don't know, because Tyler, look, you're getting enough production from the backcourt there, where if Tyler plays, he still contributes okay, and he's not taking away minutes from anybody who's like the future of this team. But the fact that Bam Adebayo can't start games with his intensity and his incredible defense and versatility because you've got to put the $25 million loser out there instead. I mean, I can't stomach that, to be honest with you. At least Tyler's able to accept his role off the bench as somewhat of a spark plug. Hassan can't even do that. Like tell Hassan, look, you're going to get your money regardless, bro. So you might as well just come off the bench, put up big numbers against, reserve units, and that's fine. Go take your paycheck and then get the hell out of here in a year and a half.
I'll go a step further. I think Tyler Johnson's contracts are probably the dumbest in Heat history. I mean, we can go back. We can go back and do a case study on some of these contracts. Going back to the Chaffel Cunningham era, but I can't think of
a tough one, right?
Not even because of the money; it's the structure to accept it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? There was no way in hell. There was no time I ever thought that Tyler Johnson would be a $19 million a year player. Even when they were faced with the reality of Brooklyn's, poison pill. I'm like, there's no way. I think I told you this 3 years ago. There's no way in hell that Tyler Johnson will ever be as good as $19 million.
You look at the average, per year. Then, if you forget the fact that it's the poison pill structure, if you look at the fact that you're paying $12.5 million a year for Tyler Johnson, is it that much more difficult to handle?
Yeah, but I can handle $20 million a year because you knew, I think the thing was back then when they were signing the deal is that there's this hope that you have 2 years to develop this guy to be a great player. But I never thought at any point he'd be that great, though.
He could have been a solid 6-man. His 3-point shooting was fine. He had some playmaking ability. There's still the ability. Look, I mean, the kid can dunk. He can explode off the bounce. There's nice flashes there. And again, this is a team that should have had Chris Bosh manning the middle, and everybody else was supposed to be a complimentary player, even an older Dwayne Wade. It just, things fell apart so badly. Like, even in 2016, there was a hope that Bosh would come back, and, it just didn't work out for the Heat. But, I mean, it could have been a very different team than the one we're seeing now. You wouldn't have had to have signed Dion Waiters. He could have maybe gotten a cheaper deal for James Johnson to keep him. You wouldn't have signed Lennox.
I was just going to ask that right now, too. Could we blame all this on the Chris Bosh situation? Because honestly, I think this team would, you say you want about LeBron and all that, but the Heat were literally a game away from going to conference championship, conference finals back in 2016. Yeah. And, if Chris Bosh is here and the blood clots don't exist, I mean, this team is probably at least stable, and you're bringing in probably better talent because of who you have in the roster.
You could have got more veterans that were at the end of their career and were like, you know what, I want to go back to Miami, get another couple years of good run. I know they can maximize my talents, etc. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I still blame I'm not blaming Chris Bosh obviously for his health, but right. I'm blaming Chris Bosh's situation as why we're in the shithole we are now. But the Hassan thing is it's disappointing, and yet I still think play it out, man. Just play it out because I don't want $11 million. I mean, look, it's not my money. Like I give a shit. But I don't. The idea of having $11 million of dead money for 7 years is just annoying. I can't think about that. Like Hassan, Hassan's hurting himself anyway. If he can't see the idea that he's hurting his own value by the time he's a free agent again in 2 years, then so be it. Let him fuck himself into that, and then that's it.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I mean, I understand. We'll see how it happens. We'll see how it plays out. At the same time, look, I'm hoping that you can just appeal to him and be like, listen, look, we're going to see now. If he's missing this game against Phoenix, maybe he misses another game for the birth of their child like Dwayne Wade did. If Bam starts and we see this team all of a sudden kind of connect and play at a higher level, maybe they'll just come to the realization that Adebayo is a much better player, like the same realization the rest of us have already come to, and they'll try to figure out some way of bringing Whiteside off the bench.
Yeah. Okay, so you're President Pat Riley, David Ramil, President of Miami Heat. In the short term, what moves are you making that's realistic to this team improving in the short term?
Improving in the short term, there are no deals to make this team any better. Maybe bringing in a backup point guard, suggesting to Eric Spoelstra to maybe start Justice Winslow as your backup, as your starting point guard in the absence of Goran Dragic. I think that's it. Other than that, even a short term, like a deal for Wayne Ellington is for a future second round pick or something along those lines. I don't think you're going to get more than that out of Ellington, and then nobody else in the roster is movable. Like, that's it. I mean, you're keeping the young guys in Olynyk because they have potential, because they're great at what they can do, and there's hope that they can be even better. Other than that, you're stuck with what you've got. Let's be honest with you. Maybe you look into a deal for James Johnson and hope that a team like the Jazz or somebody else that might need some kind of veteran defensive abilities could use a guy like James. I think there's still a place for James Johnson on this team and in the NBA, because he's been one of the few guys that has shown he can limit the Jimmy Butlers and Giannis Antetokounmpos and LeBron James of the world. Mm-hmm. So I think he's a great fit for a playoff contender. Other than that, I don't know that there's anything else he can do. I mean, right now, short term, you need a ball handler because you're forcing Roddy McGruder to do much more than he's capable of. You're asking Josh Richardson to be your team's primary defender, ball handler, scorer, etc. He's not ready for that role. He may never be ready for that role. So you need somebody to kind of help take some of the load offensively as far as playmaking is concerned. And I think Justice Winslow can do that. So I would start Justice, to be honest with you.
I'm like you about Jay Rich, because I saw an interview with him a couple of weeks ago where he admitted that he forgets that sometimes that the Heat are trying to build around him in a sense, him being the main guy, and he forgets that sometimes because that's not who he is. Right. Is it the right move though? I mean, he has played. Look, I mean, he's not efficient. I mean, obviously he's a high volume shooter to get numbers, and it takes him like 38 minutes to get like 23 points. That's not really efficient. But are the Heat doing the right thing and building around him right now?
They don't have any choice. I mean, he's the best young player you've got as far as being able to take that role right now. Goran Dragic is probably still your most consistent best player, but you can't continue to build around him, and he's never been the type to take that last second shot anyway, so why not try and build Richardson as much as you possibly can? I think ultimately you have to view Jay Rich as your probably the third best player on a title contending team, maybe the second best player on a good playoff team. And that's probably his ceiling, and that's good. That's a fine ceiling. He's a potentially a one-time, two-time All-Star at best. He's still young enough. I think there's still hope that he'll be more consistent, but he needs a legitimate superstar to play off of, because that's where his role is best, where he doesn't have to worry about knocking down the shot at the end of games, where he doesn't have to initiate offense for everybody, which is what he's being asked to do. Even having Goran in the lineup, I think, would help Jay Rich immensely, and I think you saw much more efficient stat lines from him when Goran was in the few handful of games that he played this season. And since he's gone out due to injury, you're seeing Jay Rich struggle and having to put up more shots because there isn't a complementary scorer there. So I think that's is it the right decision? I think it's the only one you can make, and it's the best one to build his confidence or to improve his production to the point where you could include him in the trade for a legitimate superstar.
All right, this conversation got more depressing every minute. So let's shift to the NBA at large.
Sure.
At least I told you, they damper in the Miami Heat right now. Let me ask you this: who, in your opinion, is the second best team in the Western Conference, rather? And look, and I say that saying that I look at the standings, and Denver 1, OKC 2, Clippers 3 right now. Currently, we're recording on Thursday afternoon. I mean. But I'm going to still say Golden State best team in the West, because we all believe that once Steph is back. Well, Steph is back now, but once they get their shit together, of course, they'll figure things out and be number one seed in the West Conference all said and done. Who, in your opinion, right now, is the in your confident number 2 team in the West right now?
The Denver Nuggets.
You saw them last night? You saw them last night?
Yes, I did. I think
recency bias, buddy.
No, not at all. I think I've been pretty high on them overall over the last couple of seasons. Obviously they missed the playoffs last year, but I like the talent distribution. I like Michael Malone as a coach and being able to get the most of their guys. I got a chance to talk to Paul Millsap about the Warriors specifically, whether he sees them as beatable, and he kind of, he beat around the bush a little bit, but he seems pretty confident that if everybody on this team does what they're capable of, they can match up well with anybody. That might be overstating things a bit, but I like their ability to play defense at a high level and their ability to put up a number of points. And playing in Denver is difficult. So if you're in a playoff series, having to travel to the Mile High, I mean, it's going to be a problem for most teams. So I'm curious to see how much of a factor that will be. I'm not sold on the Clippers. They're getting to the line a lot. They have some nice talent. They're playing with some great effort. They want to kind of prove to everybody that they're not a bottom dweller team. But can you really count on Tobias Harris to be your team's best player in the playoffs? Yeah, no, I don't.
Are they a playoff team though?
I'm sorry.
Team? Are they a playoff
the Clippers?
Team? Yeah,
I think. Look, I mean, they're 16-8 right now, and I think they have a good opportunity to continue this trend. Maybe you look to the Pelicans to continue to play better, the Jazz and the Rockets. Maybe they'll finally figure out what they need to. And they'll get healthy and they'll be able to unseat the Clippers and other teams like this. But for now, they look like a pretty good team. Are they a playoff team? I'd say they could be an A seed at best. I think they'll drop in the standings. So, I mean, they could be an A seed. That's about it. But anybody else in the West? I mean, anybody else in the West that stands out? The Oklahoma City Thunder look great defensively.
And they started 0-5.
Yeah, no, they look great. I think Russell is taking a little bit of a back seat there. Donovan's getting absolutely. Donovan is finally figuring out how to balance the players they have. They're still, I think, missing a complementary scorer there. They're putting too much pressure on their defense to come through, and I think against a team like Golden State that can exploit any team, that'll be a difficult challenge. But they're probably the third best team right now in the Western Conference, in my opinion. I don't know. There are so many, I think, pretenders to the throne. Even though they're playing at a high level, it's mostly because they're beating up on bad Eastern Conference teams. Like Portland, I don't see them as a legitimate title contender. Memphis, I'm curious to see how good they can be if they're able to sustain this level. The question with them is always injuries. I've never been a believer in the Lakers with LeBron James. I'm still not a believer. I don't care that they're the fifth best team in the West right now. I think there are too many questions there.
Believer in what? Being like in that top echelon,
Yes. I don't even think they're a playoff team, to be honest with you. I thought, absolutely. Yeah, no, what? I mean, this means nothing. There are a number of teams. Look, I mean, the Clippers were top of the Western Conference a few days ago. Now they're third. They could be fifth or sixth by the end of the week.
Well, it makes sense when you say that because I'm gonna go ahead and assume. You seem a lot more happier now. You're talking about NBA basketball instead of the Heat. You seem happy right now. I'm safe to assume that you feel like that Utah and Houston and maybe even San Antonio will figure it out.
I don't think the Spurs have anything to figure out. Like, they're just not going to get healthy.
How weird is that looking at the standings right now? What quarter you're in, and Greg Popovich, that team is number 14 in the Western Conference, just ahead of Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably in their best interest, to be honest with you. They're a team that could probably use a little bit of a tank too, because they've got LA under contract there, they've got DeMar there under contract, so their building blocks are in place and they're still good and productive enough. It's just they need something complementary there. And look, their first round pick got hurt. Their starting point guard, Dejounte Murray, got hurt. I mean, they're struggling right now, and that's fine. But I think the Jazz are going to figure it out. I still see the Pelicans as having a higher upside than the Lakers at this point with Anthony Davis there.
Well, the Rockets.
And the Rockets, wow, that is a tough one to figure out.
I knew they'd fall back a little bit, but I didn't think it'd be this bad.
No, neither did I. Look, obviously injuries have taken them out. They're missing Luka Mbamute. They're missing Trevor Ariza. I've heard that they're going to be making a trade shortly because they need something sooner rather than later. They can't afford to wait too much longer. But the window for them might have closed. I mean, it might have been a very, very short one, and it might have closed already. Can you believe that?
And it just paid Chris Paul that contract. You're going to be making $40 million a year with 4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5, I believe, or 4 and 5. Oh my God, that's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, that was tough. Like again, that was like we're talking about the Hassan Whiteside deal, and then you look at Houston and you look at Daryl Morey. They can do no wrong.
Dave, the good news with Hassan Whiteside, we're already halfway through the contract.
Oh, I know.
More than halfway through the contract. That's good news.
Yeah, very good news.
Yeah,
so are you higher on the Lakers than I am?
Well, I am obviously because you said they're not a playoff team. They're definitely a playoff team. LeBron James. Really? That's it. LeBron James.
Yeah, but, look, I see Brandon Ingram, and I'm not impressed.
Okay, LeBron James. I didn't mention anything along the ball. LeBron James. Look at the playoffs. I'm not saying going to be I'm not even saying upper echelon. I'm saying playoff team. That's all. Like you think the Clippers will end up better than the Lakers this year?
Like record wise, I think.
Well, you're saying they're not a playoff team, and the Clippers are 8th seed. I mean.
I could see the Lakers dropping below the Clippers for sure, and not talent wise. I think they're better coached and they play better than the Lakers. The Lakers are a high ceiling, a low floor team, and I think they could be really bad this year. And that's probably in their best interest too, where they can jettison some of their younger guys and clear space for actual superstar players to play alongside LeBron and make the most of the next 4 years.
Isn't the East more fun now with LeBron being out of there? I mean, obviously, because look, some of the results that happen right now in the Eastern Conference have already happened in the past, but we always had the assumption, oh yeah, this is great, but we know when April comes around, LeBron takes over and it's all over. All of a sudden now you don't have that anymore. Now you have Toronto, obviously, Kawhi Leonard, probably my MVP right now. Milwaukee number 2 in the East. Phillies is playing very well. Detroit's in the mix now. Indiana. I think Boston's some point will figure it out. So you have 6 teams in that mix that are very interesting, and no LeBron to really spoil the party.
Right?
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Toronto in particular, because I know you've been down on the Raptors in the past, and with good reason.
With DeRozan, yes.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I could see why he's a factor there.
Yeah, Kawhi flipped that narrative real quick for me.
And moreover, like you were just saying, without LeBron there, it's not like you can look at the Raptors and say, well, who cares if they win 60 games in the regular season? We all know they're going to choke in the playoffs against LeBron. With him not there, there's an opportunity for them to go all the way to the Eastern Conference title. I mean, I think that's a pretty good pick. I could see any of the teams there in the 76ers, Bucks, or Celtics kind of unseating the Raptors, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see the Raptors representing the East in the finals.
No, at this point, because even with DeRozan last year, they were the deepest team in the league. Anybody that knows basketball, like people say, "Oh, we talking about Golden State?" No. If you watch basketball like a fiend, like you do and I do, like talent, Toronto had the deepest team in the league. Now, obviously, they were not. I mean, it's lack of heart when I guess they melted like kids once LeBron came around. But other than that, I mean, they were deep, and now they translated DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl into Danny Green, who's had a really, really good season. Don't mention his name, Dave. You know the rules in this podcast. You can't do that. I still get nightmares from 2013.
Sorry, buddy.
You know that. In the finals, I'm sorry, bro. Danny Green. Yeah. Nightmares still. Yeah.
Okay, he who shall not be named has been pretty good in Toronto. And they got a huge leap from Pascal Siakam. He's been very, very good. I mean, a guy like OG Anunoby has been kind of forced on the bench, and he's still a really good player. Yeah, I mean, he's really, really good. So, that team is very deep and very capable. I don't know if they could unseat the Warriors in the finals, but I mean, I like their chances. I could see that series going 6 or 7 games.
Of course, I could too. Boston 13-10 struggling. Like, I think they'll get it together. Obviously, probably not the 1 seed, but are Boston's problems mainly just too many Chiefs? That's it.
Yeah, I think that's about right. It's been harder than we saw. We kind of. Well, not we, you and I particularly, but I think most people in general saw Brad Stevens and thought, oh, he's going to find some way to figure out how to incorporate these guys because he's always been so good at getting the most out of talent, et cetera. Just hasn't worked out that way, obviously. And I think it's certainly been more difficult to do with Gordon Hayward not being your clear-cut best player or one of the top 2 players on your team. He's struggling trying to figure out what he can and can't do after bouncing back from injury. And you've got younger players like, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're I think resent that a little bit, to be honest with you, that Hayward was expected to be the guy to carry the team, and they had to take a step back. Tatum in particular has had some pretty bad shot selection in games, and I think they've been somewhat problematic. Their defense isn't great, something that you expected to be at a higher level, and their offense has been really, really bad. I mean, their offense has just not been good at all. So
who is their best player? Is it Kyrie still, or is it, you think Tatum is the guy once it's all said and done? Who's the best player on that team?
Yeah, that's a tough argument because I think Tatum's probably more versatile as a player, but I don't think he's ready to be the superstar of that team just yet. Versus Kyrie, clearly a very good offensive player whose defense is suspect. I don't know. Can you make a case that maybe Al Horford's the team best player just because he's a two-way player?
He's not really against a glue guy now more than anything else. I mean, he's obviously a great player. I would say a fringe, maybe a Hall of Famer going forward, but he's definitely more of a glue guy than anything else. Like he doesn't look for the spotlight, you know. Whereas the quick answer is Kyrie, obviously, but like, which player would you have to remove to make that team whole again? I guess to make them back to what they were last year and flourishing in a big way.
You know, it's kind of sucks to say, but with Tatum being able to score the way he does, it almost feels like if you had a better point guard, a more defensive-minded point guard, like maybe the way that George Hill was viewed a couple seasons back, they might be able to go a little further. You know what I'm saying? Like a guy who can space the floor, who doesn't have to create so much for himself, or he's not just so dependent on the dribble the way Kyrie is, and can play defense at a high level. I think that would be the kind of player that could take Boston to the next level. So if I had to trade one, if I was Trader Danny, I'd say I'd probably move Kyrie before Tatum. That's for sure.
I'm surprised you didn't say Gordon Hayward. I mean, maybe because of that contract, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the contract, the fact that he hasn't just been able to bounce back from injury. You're not sure what you're getting with him 4 years down the line. So that's a tough one to unload. I don't see any takers for Gordon Hayward at this point in his career.
Oh, send him Miami. We'll give you Whiteside. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, okay. If he's willing to make that trade, I'd do that. Yeah, absolutely.
See, there you go. I was like, oh, wait, Whiteside? No problem. Mm-hmm. And say Tyler Johnson, too, right? I'm joking. I'm so joking.
Yeah. Yeah, now you sound like a Heat fan. Like all the Heat fans who want to trade broken parts for a brand new Lamborghini.
Give us LeBron. We'll give you James Johnson and Whiteside and all this potential talent that we can make it work. Like, really?
Right.
Come on now.
We'll throw in a second-round pick and Kelly Olynyk for Anthony Davis.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go. Anthony Davis. Interesting case study because have you figured out his contract yet? Is it 2020 free agency? Is that what it is?
Yes, it is. So he doesn't have a player option next season, as I thought.
So it's this year, next year, free agent automatically, right?
Correct.
No opt-outs, none of that.
Right.
Okay. So I saw a couple of rumors 2 days ago on the internet. Now, this is obviously probably some deep dive internet shenanigans that the team expects to trade him by February of this year, 2019 rather. And like, at first I'm thinking like, obviously this is stupid because no one's reporting this. No one of note, Woj or Shams or any people we respect in the industry. But it wouldn't surprise me if it did come up in February, because the fact of the matter is, if you're New Orleans, you're going to want a commitment around this time anyway, like beyond next year, because if he doesn't intend to stay there beyond 2019, 2020, then that will be the first move to make as the Pelicans, is to trade that asset. So while it is a ridiculous report by some of these dumb bloggers out there, it isn't so far-fetched that if the Pelicans don't get some sort of commitment by, say, All-Star break into the stretch run in the playoffs, that they do something about trading him moving forward.
Do you think it's because it diminishes whatever leverage they have if you have to wait till next year when he's an expiring contract?
Well, he can just walk and they get nothing for him.
No. I know that. In a year and a half, he can walk. Right. But next season, you still have him under contract next season. Why not make that trade next year? Is it because all of a sudden, he's going to leave, and so teams aren't going to offer as much for him?
Exactly.
Then,
kind of like Jimmy Butler, kind of like Jimmy Butler in a lot of ways, but Davis is a better player, so even worse.
Yeah, and I mean they got a good return for Butler, but not something that's equal. And I think we're starting to see that's the case more often than not. That some teams always going to lose out on the trade a little bit. You're never going to get equal parts for equal parts, especially when it comes to superstar level talent. Paul George, you got a good return for him, but nobody perceived that Victor Oladipo would be able to take the leap that he has.
No one called that, yeah.
So it's curious. I mean, I don't know. It might make this team better, to be honest with you. As much as Anthony Davis is a superstar and a great player, maybe it's time to just kind of build up the other parts of your team a little bit more. They've been lacking wing depth, obviously. They need a complimentary, guy who can space the floor. Mirotic is okay. I don't think he's that guy moving forward. Drew Holiday's fantastic, but again, you might need to start restocking that talent a little bit. And you've got Julius Randle there too, so you just signed him to a deal. I don't know. I'm of the mindset I'd like to have a guy like Anthony Davis on your team for as long as you possibly can and take that chance that you might not get anything in return.
Give him Whiteside. Let's go. Give him Whiteside. Let's go.
Yeah. Strangely, they both become free agents around the same time. I could see a great deal there for Whiteside for Anthony Davis. I don't know if New Orleans is interested, but I'd love for them to be convinced otherwise. But I don't know, man. Would you trade him now sooner rather than later and risk and not risk getting nothing in return?
Yeah, wait. You have to wait a little longer. Wait a little bit. I would say probably towards the end of the season. Well, first off, what's complicated too is that if this season goes sideways for the Pelicans, it's right now it's in the if the playoffs started today, they're not in, so that makes it tougher. But if things go sideways for the year going forward, it may ratchet up this discussion, and you have to at least consider it. The thing also too, I think you have to worry about as well as the Pelicans is that attendance is really bad, even with Davis. And are we even sure New Orleans is going to be in New Orleans for beyond 2020? Because if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say that if the NBA doesn't expand on another team, I can see New Orleans moving to somewhere like Seattle.
I mean, and if that's the case, then you kind of want to have that superstar there to bring the fans back. I mean, I think enough Seattle fans still exist where they'd follow that team regardless. But at the same time, it would certainly help to have an established star like Davis on the roster already, and so you wouldn't want him traded. I could see the NBA get involved. Yeah, so that's an interesting question there. I didn't realize. Are there talks? I haven't heard any rumors that New Orleans is looking to move out of.
No, but attendance is bad. Even with Davis, even last year when the stretch run, they were not really selling out games and whatnot.
They swept the Blazers. How could people forget that? They swept the Blazers, and they got Julius Randle.
I don't think people in New Orleans care about basketball. I just don't think they really care.
It's football town.
It's a Saints town, man.
Yeah, I could see that.
You look at Pelicans games at home, and you're lucky if you see 9,000 people in the stands now. I mean, that's pretty bad, especially in 2018's NBA basketball.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun team too. I mean, again, one of the best talents in the league, and maybe one of the best talents all time. And if you're not going to go see him, I don't know what you'd be interested in.
You don't see Anthony Davis, then I mean, really, you don't do much better than Anthony Davis really in the league. I mean, there's Steph, Durant, LeBron, and maybe Kawhi and Giannis. That's it. So.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know. But Dave, thank you as always for coming to the pod. I'm glad I was able to share you up with the NBA talk at the end of this pod. So go ahead and plug away. You want to plug anything going on? Obviously the podcast is doing very well, but any new columns coming up?
It's been, as you can imagine, having a baby has been a little harder to come up with sometimes to write. But I've got a couple pieces on Millsap, on Anunoby actually, and also on the Portland Trailblazers. So those should be coming out within the next few weeks. So always follow me on Twitter at DRamil13.
And that's on the Step Back, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. Dave, thanks as always, man. I appreciate it.
You got it, EJ.
We'll be right back.